If you bought a phone in the last year or so, there's a pretty good chance it was one of these, which means there's a really good chance you spent anywhere from $800 to $1,500 or more for that phone. Somehow we just decided that's what phones cost now. But it doesn't have to be that way. Lots of phones out there cost half as much as an iPhone XS or a Galaxy S10, or even less. There have always been cheap phones, of course, but cheap phones were mostly kind of bad. But these 8 cheap phones I've been testing, many of them are really honestly good phones. The difference between these guys and these guys is a lot smaller than you think. To understand how that's possible, it helps to understand the components that go into every smartphone. So let's take apart this one. And because my track record for taking these things apart and putting them back together again isn't very good, I'm probably going to destroy it. Bear with me.
Remember, don't try this at home unless you're much better at this than David and wearing safety goggles and have other necessary gear, including a fire extinguisher. Lithium-ion batteries, which power phones and tablets, can catch fire if punctured. In general, you should always be careful and safe and only open your gadgets if you know what you're doing. Opening your gadgets might void your warranty. David might be an idiot.
So I was going to open up this phone and show you all the different parts to help illustrate what a phone actually costs to make. But now, we can't do that. So instead, we're going to show you some very safe and entirely non-flammable stock images of various parts of a phone and talk about it that way. The most expensive part, typically, is the screen. A nice one costs up to $100. Some memory and storage, plus a processor and all the wireless radios. Now, let's say that's another $100. A couple of cameras, that's another $30 or $40. Batteries are a few bucks, the included charger's a few more, all the screws and boards and cables and sensors and the little pieces you'd never think of to make it all work. That's all pennies, really, but call it another 20 bucks. It costs a little more to assemble all the parts and ship you the phone, but you can see we're nowhere near $1,000. Some of that cost is you paying for ad campaigns and huge corporate offices shaped like spaceships. You know, hypothetically. All this is to show you that you can now get a great, no-compromises phone for a whole lot less than you'd pay for flagship phones from Apple or Samsung. That wasn't always true, but it is now. If you buy a phone with a and still have $100 left over. The first of my picks is the Pocophone F1 from Xiaomi, which you can find online for right around $300. It's shockingly high-end, with a fast processor, plenty of storage, and even a really nice screen. And, like all the other cheap phones I tested, it has a headphone jack. But the nicest surprise is the photography. The 2 cameras on the back and the one on the front all shoot great. Not quite as well as the $1,000 phones, but genuinely close. And the phone does HDR, portrait mode, and all the other features you'd want nowadays. The other great option is the $300 Motorola Moto G7. Motorola's been making awesome cheap phones for years now, and the G7's just a good phone across the board. Motorola's real strength is its software. It has a way to always keep your phone unlocked as long as you're looking at it, or turn on the flashlight just by going like this. Most important, Motorola has a really strong track record of updating its phones with the latest version of Android sooner than almost anybody else. A lot of these phones are running software that's months or even years out of date. That's why my third pick is the $350 Nokia 7.1. It runs software called Android One, which is just absolute stock Android. The manufacturers aren't even allowed to change it. And it comes with the promise of at least 2 years of updates. Besides, this is just a really nice phone. I thought coming into this test that every cheap phone would feel cheap, and a lot of them do. But Nokia's phone in particular feels pretty darn high-end, with a 5.8-inch screen and these gold accents and all the metal and glass. Honestly, I hold this and my iPhone, and they kind of feel the same. They're not the same, though. There are still plenty of good reasons to buy a $1,000 phone. None of the ones I tested are waterproof, for instance, and many of them don't work on Verizon or certain other carriers. But the broader point is that every phone on this table, from the $1,600 Samsung Galaxy S10 Plus to the $150 Blue Vivo XL4, is a perfectly good phone. So next time you're looking to upgrade, don't just buy the most expensive thing you can afford. You might be able to get something almost as good for a fraction of the cost.